Oh, wow. That was very interesting. I expected many things, not that in particular. But it's, so when I never asked myself this question, you know? It's not the first thing that comes to your mind when you're young. When you're 13, 14, 15, it's not what is the most creative way of killing a human being. That's brutal. But also starting your speech with that question, it's so dark, right? And I'm not planning on any form of a dark speech today. It would rather be more either funny or inspirational. There will be dark moments of it, but you can't have a fun part or inspirational part unless you have a dark side of it. I was severely in love when I was 13. And when you're in love when you're 13, you think she is the final love of your life. You will never love again anyone else. And if you by any chance lose her, your heart is dead. There is no way you can love again. It feels so real. And love and being shy does not really go along at that age very well. I was in severe love, but I was severely shy. So I could not tell her that I love her. The painful part, though, is that she, in the classroom, was sitting in the seat in front of me. So 6 hours every single day, I'm thinking about her. When she turns around for any reason, I have to turn around because I don't dare to look her in the eye. So I don't know whether her eyes were green or brown. 3 years later, I didn't know what was the color of her eyes. I never dared to look her straight like this, you know, because what if it's scary, you know? You know that feeling. You all know that feeling, how scary it is, you know? And I was so upset about the fact that I was so shy, but I will try to find creative ways of getting her attention. So I'm sitting behind her, so when it's exam, I will come without a pen. The teacher hands you the paper to write, and I raise my hand. I don't have a pen. She hears. She turns around to give you a pen. She gives me the pen. And then, after the exam, I keep the pen. So she would come to me and talk to me. Hey, can I get my pen back? You know? But she never did. I'll take the pen, and she will never come asking for it. So it didn't work. So I would do anything possible to get her attention. She made me so good in school. I studied all the time. While simultaneously thinking about her, I was studying because her dad was the school principal. So if he knows that I'm in love with his daughter, he would say, well, at least he's a good student. You know? And love in my time and in my hometown is a secret you don't share with anyone. You're not supposed to love. For my father, who was an officer in the military, love was nothing you're allowed to do in school because it limits you from being the best student. Being the best student was the most important thing. My time and in my hometown is a secret you don't had in his mind. 5 in the morning, share with anyone. In July, you're not supposed to lie. My dad would wake me up to study for 1 hour, to prepare to the next grade, to the 8th grade, in the summer. You know? So school was the most important thing. So when I fell in love, I keep that very important secret to myself. You don't share it with anyone. You can't trust anyone, especially your sisters. You share it, it's on the national news. So I didn't share it with anyone, but at some point I couldn't do it anymore. I felt like I've been in love with that girl for so long time that I just feel like I know her so well, right? So I decided at some point to break the silence and write her the first letter. That's gonna change everything. Imagine the love is from 2 sides. It's not one side. Imagine her turning around and her eyes are full of love for me. Imagine how much joy I will have. Imagine how much more I will study. Imagine how nicer I will be to anyone around me. So I go home and I take the most beautiful paper I have. Thick, clean, smells good. And I take the most beautiful pen I had. And I think, what should I write? What should the first letter to the person I love the most be like? What are the words? With the mind of then 14, 15 years old, I thought for hours and ended up on the conclusion that I have to make it slightly coded in case she doesn't love me back. I can say, it wasn't me who wrote the letter. So I decided on the letter, the first letter of love in my life, to write a heart with the first letter of my name and the first letter of her name. And I would color it with red if we have red. Let's assume it's red. And color it so well. And I would fold it so nicely. And I would keep it somewhere safe. And the day after comes, and now it's a break. During the break, everybody's outside the classroom. I come back to the classroom, and that's her seat. There is something like in front of your seat where there's a box. In that box, I put the letter. And the bell rings again. Everybody's coming back to the classroom. And the guys are coming. And you have, those guys that stand in the corner somewhere and they talk very loud? I stand with these guys who are the least interesting thing humanity could provide. That was these guys. And I pretend to be interested in their conversation. One eye is with them, one eye is on that chair. And she comes in. And when she comes in, I'm just imagining that beautiful look she's gonna give me for a second at least, And she comes in slowly, talking to her friend, and step after step after step, she's getting so close, and you're sweating. You dying slowly. And she comes in, and she sees the note, and she takes the note. And imagine the moment when your life is gonna change to the better, when you're feeling it's gonna change to the better, when you're gonna grow up. At that just tiny moment, that's how I felt. And she takes the note, and she opens the note, and she reads the note, and she's walking. It's such a joy. She can't handle all these emotions while standing in your place. You have to walk. And she's walking with the note, and she's folding the note. And she's holding the note on one hand, and she throws the note in the trash. I can't breathe after that. And I just have to come back and sit behind her, thinking how horrible she is, how dark, heartless, with no feelings, no consideration. And she's sitting acting like nothing happened. How could she do that to me? And I sit there and I'm so stressed and I'm so nervous, then it comes to mind that I'm not the only one with the letter O as their first initial. Could be anyone in the classroom. Gives me hope again. I go back the day after. And I color it. But I put my perfume on. So now I fold it and put it on her seat. When she comes, she takes it. I perfumed it enough it could kill the classroom. She would know it's me. She's been sitting in front of me for 2 years. She knows everything about me. And she takes the note. And she opens the note. And you can feel that she smelled the note. And it's so much beauty in that note. You can't read it by standing. And she walks, and she throws the note in the trash. And with that trash, She's throwing your heart, your feelings, every investment, every moment you spend thinking about her, she's putting that in the trash. And I go back home and so depressed, so angry, so frustrated. You lock yourself in that room and your mom's calling you, come have dinner. I'm not hungry. Come do this. I don't want to do this. You don't respond to humanity. You're so upset because your world is not working for you. The most important thing for you, you're not the most important thing for them. That was the most important thing in my life. Having good grades for my father's sake, and loving that person. That was all I had. But then I realized, what girl would like to have a note with a guy perfume on it in her clothes to smell like a guy? Nobody wants that. So I go home and I write a note. Heart, I color it red. O, an H. And then my mom's perfume, my sister's perfume, my aunt's perfume, the neighbor's perfume. And I just perfume it enough to kill humanity, right? And I put it there. And as she come in through the classroom, because I've been traumatized for so many times, for me, even before she enters, I can see her in my imagination, walking there, taking the note, walking towards the trash and dropping it. I can see it before it happens. I see it now. I'm imagining everything as I tell it. And she comes in to the classroom, even though you have been so annoyed about what she has done, you had a slight ignite of hope somewhere that things may change, yet you could imagine nothing but the negativity of it. And she comes in with her classmate, and they walking, and I'm standing with the most boring guys you could ever imagine. And slowly she comes in, and she takes the note, and she opens the note. And you can clearly see that she's smelling that note very hard. You know, she takes the note, and she is walking with the note, and she's holding the note with two hands, folding the note, holding the note with one hand, and walking outside of that classroom as she puts the note in her pocket. No moment can match that moment. She is severely in love. She can't handle how much in love she is with me. Her world just changed. And I can't contain my happiness. I don't know what to do. I'm sitting behind her now in the classroom. I raise my hand for every question. That's math, that's physics, that's history, that's geography, that's art, anything. I'm ready to be in front of the class so I can look her straight. Right? Happiness was unbelievable, unmatchable at that time. And for someone who just turned 15, that was the most powerful achievement I could have in my life. And then something different, unrelatable happens. My cousin, who is my close friend named Bashir, calls me on the phone and he says, Omar, come downtown. Lots of things are happening. He actually told me the birds are gathering. And for somehow, I understood that was not birds. So I go downtown. And I am from a very small town. And I go downtown and there's 30,000 people on the street. Seeing 30,000 people, it's like, that's the world. You know, that's a lot of people that you can't even imagine for me from a very small town. And I go there, and then as you coming to that crowd, there's a bunch of people standing, handing you flowers and roses and branches of olive tree. Very lovely, you know. The first thing when somebody hands you a very beautiful, expensive flower is that, if I keep it well, I can take it to her tomorrow, right? And I walk and I join that crowd, and that crowd was just screaming, saying, freedom, freedom, freedom. That sounds good, you know? So you join that crowd and you say, freedom, freedom, freedom. How much do you understand what freedom meant? Well, irrelevant at that moment. And then they were talking about democracy. They were talking about, you know, corruption. They were talking about a better life and so on. Better life? I just get that 2 days ago, you know? She just wrote a letter. She just, you know, took my letter and realized that she loves me, and I realized she loves me. That was all I could have from a good life. So when people were on the street asking for freedom, democracy, against corruption, to bring down a government, that was nothing I understand as a 15 years old, because I never learned about politics in school. I never learned about it in books or saw it on TV. But I joined because it sounds very lovely. And I scream what they scream, freedom, freedom. It's joy, but also all my friends were there. And in the back side of the protest, the girl I love was there. So of course I'm going to be there. But you never imagine or understand that on the other side of all of that, there's one more side, which is the police, the intelligence services, the military of your own country. And considering that my father was an officer for 25 years, I am used to see the military. I'm used to see weapons, tanks, because I lived in a military area for 7 years, because my dad was an officer, transferred in Damascus. So I was used to all of that. So when I saw them there, when I heard that they were so close to us, I didn't fear anything. Because like you learn in the books and see in the movies, the police exist to protect you from the criminals. They take the criminals to prison, right? So when for the first time, suddenly you see the police aiming their guns at you, 15 years old, with people that are younger than you on the street, and you know that you never committed any crime, and you wonder in silence there, are they gonna ever shoot? They can't shoot. We are thousands of people and they see us there. We are men, women, children. We are holding flowers in our hands. It's not like any of us did any crime. So they definitely will not shoot, because police, for me, is my father. My father was an officer, right? So they would never shoot. And it's become a moment of silence. And then when people see nothing happens, they rise again, they say, freedom, freedom, freedom. And as they are speaking, and they start to shoot. It was the first time in my life I see someone dying. I never seen anyone dying before. Most importantly, I never seen a friend dying before. Suddenly a friend is on the ground and he's bleeding and there's blood everywhere. And I just next to him and I see people running. People are running from every place. People are running away. And some people who recognize me say, Omar, run away, they're gonna take you, run away. And every cell in my body wants to run away. But also every cell wants to stay, to go down to my friend, to help him, to pull him or anything. But I froze. I couldn't do anything. I just froze in my place. I can't move because I don't know what's happening and why what's happening is happening. So I just stand there freezing and I hear people's voices are fading away as they run. And I can't move. And I started to see the intelligence services getting closer, step after step after step. And as you saw them killing your own beloved ones, you start to imagine them more like monsters. You don't see them as police anymore. And they're coming closer and closer and closer. And they bring me down to the ground. They tie my hands behind my back. And they start to hit me and jump on my body. And then an officer comes and asks me a question. What was the question? What was the question? Syrians would know. You want freedom. You want freedom. But that was that. Do you want freedom? And as a 15 years old boy, that is an obvious question, was an obvious answer. So when he hits me for the first time and he comes down and he said, do you want freedom? But I say yes. A Syrian laughed for that because they all the people here went through this. But he takes his gun and starts hitting me with the back of his gun and on my head, and he jumped, and it's harder and harder, and you can feel that the small stones on the bottom of the ground, it's coming inside your skin, in your face, And while you're wondering why they're doing this to you, you are in severe pain, and you learn hit after hit, punch after punch. Then you say, no, I don't want freedom. But they keep hitting you and say, you want freedom? This is freedom. You want freedom? This is freedom. And they keep hitting you, and then you bleed, and you see friends besides you dying. And from there, they take me, and they put me in prison for the first time in my life. 15 years old, don't know much about the world beside the girl I love. Now they have tortured me. There's small stones in my face. I don't have a mirror. Do I look ugly now? Would she still love me? They shaved my hair. I was handsome because I had that hair. Without a hair, I can't love myself for her to love me. When they shaved my hair, would she still love me? That was the thing I was thinking about. You know, in the beginning, after like hours of torture, I sit in my room and think about my family for a minute, then I think, do I still look good? You know, I was afraid of them releasing me 2 days later, and I would go and I would look terrible, you know, because I was thinking like a child. Yet I didn't grow up. But then I had questions that were so important. Why is a police officer, was an officer from the intelligence services, doing this to me? Well, for sure, they know that I didn't do anything wrong. That doesn't make sense. Why would they do that? They exist for the purpose of protecting civilians and innocent people like me. It's so reversed that the police is committing all the crimes. I didn't understand what's happening. And in that cell, nobody talked to the other person. People were in fear, silence. The only thing you could hear while you're waiting in this cell, you could hear people screaming out of pain in the corridor where they're torturing them in the investigation rooms. You can just hear everyone saying, kill me, you know, kill me. I would say anything, just kill me. They want the pain to stop. And then you just wait for your turn. You hear your friends screaming out of pain, and it hurts so bad to hear that. Imagine how much it's gonna hurt when it's your turn. And then it was my turn. And they take me, and then they ask me questions I don't understand. It's like they were speaking a totally different language. Like, how many officers have you killed? It's like, where do I start to talk about this? Firstly, no officers died, and they know that. For a fact, they know it. And I know that they know that no officers died. But also, I'm like 15 years old in the kitchen, yet my mom doesn't allow me to hold the knife. So you ask me questions that are funny, and to some extent. So I laugh when he asks me for the first time, say, haha. And he comes, and then he punches me so hard on my stomach that I couldn't breathe anymore. And you know that feeling. As a Syrian, you know that feeling. You can't breathe, and it takes 30 seconds to recover your ability to breathe. And then you realize here, it's not about the truth. Here is about giving the intelligence services what they want. What they want is a false confession that leads you to execution. That's what they want. Why? Doesn't matter anymore. When you're in pain, when you're in extreme pain, the why disappears from your brain, from your mental, doesn't matter. You just want the pain to stop, even though it's death. You just want the pain to stop at this moment. So I gave the false confession they wanted, and just 2 days later, they come to take me, and they use as dark language as they can. So they tell you, we're taking you to execution, you're gonna die, it's gonna be so painful. And then they mention my mom in some sentences I don't understand, then they take me, they put me in a car, then they drop me on the highway. On the other side of the highway, I just see a gathering of women. And I walk towards them, they walk towards me. And then I see my grandma. My grandma comes and hugs me, so ya qalbi, ya amri, ya hayati, ma satak aish, my heart, my soul, you're still alive, it's so good to see you, and so on. I don't understand what's happening. I have a fabulous mom, a powerful mom, a beautiful mom, magnificently courageous and brave. When they arrested me and the rest of the men in our hometown, my mobilized all the women. They went to the highway. They blocked the highway, and they arrested some significant people and called the intelligence services. Hey, I want my son back, or I would kill whoever I have in my hands. So my mom negotiated with the intelligence services. I was released with the youngest prisoners at that time. And there's nothing that can help you understand freedom more than prison. Prison takes away everything from you. In a prison like that place, they take definitely everything, your ability to speak, to exist, to breathe. They control everything about you. They force you to give false confessions that leads you to execution. So when everything is taken from you, that's when you understand the value of everything. And that's when you understand the importance of freedom. So when I was in the protest for the first time, saying freedom, I didn't understand it. I was just saying what people were saying. But when I made it out after 2 days, only 2 days of torture, I knew exactly what freedom I want. I knew exactly why we should be on the street asking for freedom and a better life. Because there are monsters in power that are ready to kill anyone that could challenge them at any moment. There are intelligence services that could kill children without hesitation. And that I can't accept. That was the first time in my life I had a thought that was so important, more than the thought of loving that girl. So I decided, because I knew how scary it was to be part of this revolution, I decided to again write a letter to the girl I love the most. But this letter was very different. It had very different shapes. This letter was more sad and very dramatic. I decided to write a letter to tell her that, hey, I love you, and I'll always love you. Every cell in my heart, in my brain, in my body, even my hair loves you. But I know that I will die because I see what they do to people there for protesting, and I will always protest. And I know I will die. And I know in interrogation room they may ask me questions like, who protested with you? I don't want by a mistake to say your name under the pain of torture. So I would rather try to stop thinking about you. So I wanted to stop thinking about me. I wanted to stop loving me. 15 years old. Writing that was heartbreaking at that moment. And telling her to not love me, and she responded with letters that I never opened because I really felt I can't be weak. I can't do that anymore. I really cared the most about these protests, going out to the street asking for freedom. And that was very costly. So I was arrested 7 different times, tortured in all of them. But the most significant one was the last one, where it lasted for years. I have that mom that I just told you about. So every time they arrest me, a few days later, or a week later, or 2 weeks later, my mom comes and takes me out of prison. So for me, when they arrest me and we are in the torture chamber, I would sit, when we back to our room, I will say to the other prisoners, don't worry, my mom's getting me out. When she gets me out, I'll get you, don't worry. You know, it's like wasta. It's like, don't worry. I was like assuring everyone, hey man, my mom is Jahre Gefangener, you know. My mom is the person who says, I am Jahre Gefangener, you know. It's like very, very cocky about it. So I would like, even though they torture me in pain, but I did it multiple times, so you're used to it. Even though it still hurt, but you believe your mom is coming. There's no way. I know that mom. She's so powerful. She would never let her son stay in prison with these conditions. So I would comfort everyone, and people would believe me so bad that we're not worried anymore, you know. If we just manage to stay alive for a few more days, Omar will get out, and when he's out, he would never forget about us. His mom will get us all out. And they believed in. So 2 weeks have passed, and I was still there. And usually it's 2 weeks. A month passed, and I was still there. That was the longest I've been there. 2 months passed, and I was still there. 3 months passed, and I was very afraid, worried. 6 months passed, and I started to question whether my mom will come or not. I started to question whether my mom is okay or not. 7 months passed, and the guards came in. And they asked, who is from Al-Baida, my hometown? And I raised my hand. And they, with a lot of joy and happiness, said, we killed everyone. We burned your hometown. We killed your parents, your family, everything you have. And when they said, I have nothing left. And they bombed the house of the principal of the school, who is the father of the girl I love. So, she's dead. So if the girl I love is dead, if my school is bombed, my hometown is burned, and my parents and childhood friends are dead, what do I have to live for? Nothing. Except the cellmates that I have, which were my cousins. One of them, Bashir, that was my best friend. So in the cell together, we knew that our entire families have been killed. We have nothing to live for. And that's when you question yourself, does it hurt to die? Does it hurt to die? Does it hurt to die? It does hurt. What happens after you die? Any guess? So I wanted to kill myself, but I was worried about two things. That's going to hurt in a way that's different from the pain they inflict on you by torture. And also it's going to lead you to hell if you kill yourself. If you're not supposed to kill yourself, if you plan to go to heaven, you have to struggle in this life, then you die without taking your own life. So I was very hesitant about it. I, at some point, tried to do it, or in a way or another, but then I couldn't do it because I was afraid it's going to be different sort of pain. And I would live there, and I would see my cousins, one after one, dying and leaving. Yet, wasn't, I don't know what the sentence to say that, but I was used to pain. I was used to seeing people die. We had 50 people being executed on a daily basis. Death became so normal. Dead people was very normal to see. Seeing food was very weird. Having more than normal. You notice if they have one more potato than usual, but you didn't notice if there's one more dead person than yesterday. You don't notice that. Death was so normalized. But I still had my cousin Bashir, my favorite person. He survived. His siblings died. And Bashir and I would talk as much as we can. We would whisper as much as we can, because if the guard hears your voice, they torture you. So we're not allowed to speak, so you whisper. The good thing about whispering, though, is that you have to pay attention to the person who is speaking, so you automatically have active listening. When somebody is whispering, it's much better than speaking with a louder voice, technically, if you want the person to listen to you. So Bashir and I would talk, and then slowly I would pull out his thoughts about how he's feeling about what's happening. And he would say to me, if my mom is still alive outside, and if I survive and I get out, and I go to my mom, and my mom asks me, where are your younger siblings? Can I tell my mom that they died next to me and there is nothing I could do about it? I am the older brother who is supposed to save them, to protect them. If someone have to die, it's me, not my younger siblings, not my sister. So if I go out, I will be ashamed to meet my mom if she is alive. So I don't want to get out. I don't want to meet my mom. I want to die. And when you starve, when you're tortured, and in addition to that, you don't want to eat, it's very difficult to survive. And slowly with the time, I can see him getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And then at some point in my arms, I see him dying. And he did not just represent Bashir, my best friend. He represented everything that was meaningful, because he was the last of my family, the last of my friends, the last of my hope, the last of my connection to a normal life, the last of my connection to love, to a humane feeling. So when he dies, and I look him in his face, and I see he can't breathe, he's not existing, he's not present anymore, I have an empty feeling. I can't be sad. It's like sadness cannot contain what I'm feeling. I can't be happy. I can't understand what's happening. I don't understand if it's real. And then we had to take his body, and it will be taken away. You go back to your room where you used to sit on this very small square. And with this very small square, you were entertained to some extent by the faces you know. But now the faces you know are gone. The feelings that were good at some point are gone. You are empty. And then I see that people's eyes, when they look at me, they were disappointed. They were looking at me like he lost everything. He's ready to die. He will die. There's no way that he won't die. But the good thing about losing everything is that it gives you the opportunity to discover what you don't have and the things that you could potentially have that you never thought about. So when you lose everything, you realize that you are surrounded by other prisoners. You know, you communicate with these other prisoners for the first time. And you realize the prisoner next to you is a doctor. And the person to your left is a psychologist. In front of you is an engineer. Behind of you is a lawyer. And there is a professor. And there is an economist. And you realize you're the younger prisoner here with no experiences. And all these people are the top people of your country. None of them obviously committed any crime. All of them are political prisoners. The regime put all these people in prison, so nobody can revolt against the regime, stand against the regime. Nobody who understands corruption and brutality would stand against the regime. Suddenly, I'm sitting in the most interesting circle of people you could ever imagine. And when I'm bleeding from my shoulder from the torture, what do you think the doctor is talking to me about? How to take care of your wounds so you don't die from infection. What do you think the psychologist is talking to me about? How to process your trauma. What do you think the lawyers talking about? How can we build a system so we have a dictator-free prison so we don't kill each other because of starvation? And what do you think the teachers talk about? Everybody started to use the knowledge they had, the experiences they had, the professions, the life experience they had to create a system that can help us survive for one more day. And for them, who were older than me, most of them were like plus 40. The older you are, when they break your bones, the less likely you are to heal in the right way. Because there's no health care, there's torture and starvation. There's no doctors that come help you, except the doctors who are prisoners. No resources, nothing. Everything you do by hand. So suddenly, everybody started to invest in me because I was the youngest. So when they break my bones, I heal faster. When they have wounds, I heal faster. I recover from everything much faster. So the doctor who taught me how to take care of my wounds didn't just teach me that for myself. He taught me that so when he is wounded, I can help him. Psychologist, same thing. When he can't stand being there, so I can talk to him. Same thing with everything. Everybody started to invest what they know the most in their surrounding. What that did is we realized that we need each other to survive. I can't survive for being strong or strong mental. You can't. It doesn't work that way. I survive if the person next to me is a person I can trust. So I sleep and he doesn't kill me to get my food. That he makes sure when I have infection, he takes care of me. When I'm starved more than everyone else, he feeds me. So I pay him back when it's time, when he is in pain. So we built a community, a very strong community of trust. That community of trust was a very safe environment in a very dark space. We were in prison, we were tortured on a daily basis. We were starved, we didn't have enough food, we were starved, people dying every day. But in that small circle, you have to understand, prison had torture, starvation. For how many hours is the torture? Half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. Then how much do you have? You sleep for 4 or 5 hours? Then you have 13, 14 hours in your cell, sitting with cellmates. They're the top people of your country that you would never have on a table, around the same table, outside of prison, you know? And 2 Arabic teachers would never sit together. because they're so competitors in Syria. In prison, you had all of them together around the same circle. 2 doctors, everybody sitting together. So what happened is that I felt so safe. Even though I got tortured, I come back, I know I'm coming back to a place to people I could trust. That trust we didn't have outside of prison. Because the government worked for years to make sure people don't trust each other, so divided. And that's why we have, the statement that says, the walls hear you. That's a very Syrian statement, which means everything around you can hear you. If you say anything about politics or the president or anything, we will take you because we have someone who is informing about you. That's the culture you grow up on since you're baby till you die. Zero trust in the society. So when you go into a revolution, you are in a revolution, but also you're in fear. You can't trust the intelligence services. You can't trust the military. You can't trust anyone. Makes it very difficult to organize. And then you see the military, your own people, because the military aren't random people from outside. The military are own people, just like me and you. And they're shooting us. Then you start to be disappointed about humanity. But you hope that at least we are asking for freedom. Freedom that countries in the West have, which means the West will come and help. We believed if we stream on live stream our suffering, our protest, the massacres that happened to us, the world would react. Because we're asking for something they enjoying. They can relate to our suffering. They suffered to have what they have, so they would care enough to support. And guess what? They didn't. We died. Not in thousands, not in tens of thousands, not in hundreds of thousands, 1 million Syrians have died since 2011. We're asking for freedom, for democracy, for a better life, to address corruption. They died for one person to stay in power. One person and his family to stay in power. And in prison, even though you live there trusting the people around you, you know that even though that person loves me and I love that person, I'll protect them, they'll protect me, I know I will die, regardless of how long I survive, because I never seen anyone get out. The only thing I saw people getting out, dead bodies. So, and there's something great with that. When you live, like every day is the last day of your life, every minute, you feel it's the last minute of your life, because the guard could come inside and just shoot you at any moment, or just kick you on your neck and you die. At any moment, if they don't like the weather, if his wife doesn't cook for him yesterday, they have permission to kill at any time. And we in Germany, we understand exactly how it happened early, during the Holocaust, right? Shooting, killing without even hesitation or thought. Same thing was happening in this prison. Just if the guard doesn't like the way his hair is today, he goes and he punches people to death. So knowing that at any moment I could die, I was nice all the time to everyone. And everyone was nice to me all the time. So if I die, people, when they remember me with something nice. When they die, I remember with something nice. We were very careful not to upset anyone near us, because we want to die as good people, because we knew we were dying. And then those people around me will die, and they'll be replaced with the new people. They transferred to a new room, new prison. And then I was transferred to a place that was very, very, very unique in everything. Every time they take you to a prison, to give you some context, every time they take you to a prison, you realize something. It is the worst place you could ever be in. So wherever they transfer you to is better. Then they transfer you. Then you realize it's the worst place you could ever be. You would wish to go back here, because this is definitely the worst you could. Then they transfer you. Then you realize it's the worst place you could ever be in. You wish to go back and spend 200 years in the prison before. But then there is a point you reach when you realize there's nothing worse. And that is Sednaya prison. You come there, and it's clearly a slaughterhouse. This is actually how Google Map says. On Google Map, you go, it's the slaughterhouse. You come to Sednaya prison, and then you understand it's not about physical torture, because the guard understand that your skin gets numb to pain. Your bones as well get numb to pain. So over the time, you process pain so your body is capable, probably some of you are doctors or studying medicine here, slowly you get numb to it. In your brain, the fear of torture has been reduced because you've been going through that for years, so you don't fear it, you don't feel it that much anymore. So you get used to the pain, and the guards in Sednaya are experts, they know that. So they give you a break. They let you recover. They let your skin recover all the feelings it needs. So when they hit you, it hurts like it's the first time you feel pain in your life. And then you realize the guards are expert. They know they can inflict a lot of physical pain, but they would rather have the mental pain. They would bring you and bring someone you know in your cell. They ask if any siblings are here, any father and brothers and son is here. They would bring them, and they would force one of them to torture the other, force one of them to kill the other. Two, both destroy trust, to tell people, hey, you can't trust anyone next to you. Anyone could kill you. Even your father could kill you. They would give food to 5 people in a room of 35 people. 30 people will have to kill the 5 to share the food, or they will die. The brutality was not limited. The guard knew they could kill as many as they want, as long as they keep a few. Because every time they kill 10, they bring 10 new prisoners. And this is almost unbelievable, because it's still happening until today. But we move on. The news doesn't mention it anymore, even though the brutality is still happening, because again, like pain get normalized, the suffering of other people that are far away also get normalized for the rest of the world. The world doesn't matter, doesn't care about it anymore. I won't talk much more, and I was at some point super ready to die. You know, I lived a good life where I fell in love. I lived a life of pain, but also I managed in prison to create a sort of good sense of life. And then I was ready to be done, to die. So I go to heaven or to go to nothingness. I was thinking the likelihood of me going to hell is very tiny, considering how much I suffered in my life and how young I am, you know? I was thinking, if I die, it's not a big risk, you know? It's either nothingness or heaven. The outcome is either neutral or fantastic. You know, so I was super ready to die, and they opened the corridor on a Tuesday. And when they open the corridor, you always get ready. You know, spent 1 year inside Sednaya prison. Every time they open a corridor, you get ready to die. But they came in and they said, Omar. And there's echo in that prison because prisoners are not allowed to speak. It's super quiet, no furniture, so there's echo. So when they say Omar, you can hear it 5 times. And as soon as you say your name, you don't know how long it's going to take before they come to you. So you turn to the person next to you, the first person next to you, and say, hey, I'm sorry if I ever did anything wrong. I'm so sorry for that. You want to leave with a good feeling. You want to leave when people care about you. So I turn around, and yet they didn't say the last name. There are more Omars. Like in that love letter, there was more than one Omar. It could be anyone, but it could be so much me. And the guard is walking towards us, and then he says, Omar Alshogre. With the excitement of the end of pain and the fear of not knowing how it's going to be, I started to cry, drop tears while laughing at the same time in silence, of course, because we're not allowed to speak. And everybody started to run towards me and hug me and say, God accepts you, and, you know, Allah yarhamak, Allah yataqabbalak, and all these words. And then, you know, people are crying and they're kissing you on your cheeks and they're hugging you, and some people are just touching you because you're leaving. You're not coming back, you know. It's going to be disappearing from existence. And I would be, I don't know how to handle it, but then you have to go to the middle of the room to be on your knees and your hands on your eyes. And then the guard opens the door, and he comes in, and he ignores my existence And he goes in. And he hits someone so hard until he dies. And he tells me to pull that body out of the room. I pulled that body out of the room, and the guard asked me to follow him. Follow him. He opens the door. He opens the door and asks me to be inside that room, an empty room. And I have to stay on my knees with my hands on my eyes. We believed there was cameras, we can't look, so we didn't look up. We were afraid all the time. So when they tell you stay on your knees, you stay on your knees even though you know there's no guards outside. There's a guard close by the room. I can hear his existence. But they were outside. They left me in the room on my knees with my hands on my eyes. I can only imagine different ways by which they will kill me. But I just want it to be quick, and I don't want to see the way I'm going to die. I just want things to end. I just want to die. And the guard comes exactly when his watch peeps, you know. They had a Casio watch. ما بتروح عمك على السعودية على الحج بيجيبوا لك إياها. That there's, our uncles usually give us a Casio watch. You know those Casio watch? Beep, 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 beep every hour? The guard had one of them. At some point, I heard it, beep, 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 beep. And the guard came in and opened the small window in the door. We call it sharra'a. And he asked me a question. What do you think the question was? One second. You can't cheat if you heard it before. You want freedom? I have to pick white people because the rest have seen it. What do you think the guard asked? You want to die? The guard, with his very calm voice, with that very small window that I didn't see him, but I could imagine how close he was, he said, with a very calm voice, just imagine it. How do you want me to kill you? And I stay super quiet because in prison, even when they ask you questions, you don't answer. They are just for the torture, mental torture. They're not to answer. And it's perfect silence. And in that perfect silence, he breaks it with, how do you want me to kill you? And he screams so loud that every cell in prison have heard it. And I stay quiet, and he says, answer me. How do you want me to kill you? Be creative. Give me something I can enjoy. And I know who these guards are. I saw them killing people in so many creative ways, and if I lacked something, it wasn't creativity. If I saw something in the last 3 years, it has been pain and killing and suffering, people dying in so many ways. So I didn't lack the imagination to answer that question, and it's a one-time thing. So I said, shoot me. So he said, shoot me? How creative is that? How fun is that? I have done that so many times. Give me something creative, something I can enjoy. And there is a question in your heart that didn't leave you since the first day of the first protest you've been to. How could a guard, that could be a father, definitely is a brother or a son, how could he not just torture me? How could he seem and feels to enjoy inflicting so much pain? That was the most important question I asked myself in my entire life. How could you enjoy putting so much pain on someone you know is innocent, you know is the age of your own son? How could you sleep at night with that? So I said different answers, and at some point he gets satisfied and he leaves. And I can feel his existence not far from the room, and sometime later, peep, 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 and he comes in and he opens the window and he asks me a question. How do you want me to kill you? I didn't think he would come back and ask me that question. So I didn't think about different new scenarios. I already said what I had in mind, so I had to think as he waits. And he is really waiting for me to tell him about creative way to kill me. So I give him a creative way, and then he disappears, and then he comes back 1 hour later. So I spent 58 minutes of every hour then thinking about creative way of killing a human being for 48 hours, day and night, different shifts of guards. That much pain they want to put you through, to break not just you physically, they want to break every cell of your humanity. So if you ever, by any chance, make it anywhere, you're so broken that you can't function in any way. So I answered, and then they came and they take me, and I was, after these 48 hours, I had no problem if death hurts so bad. Now I just want to die. I just want to end everything. I just want to die. And they take me and they put me somewhere on the ground. After they transport me with a car, truck, something, I don't understand what it was. Blindfolds on my eyes, heavy chains of metal in my arms, and put on the ground. My forehead is facing the ground. I'm closing my eyes even though there's blindfolds because I don't want to see how I'm gonna die. I've been in pain for such a long time. I don't want to end my life with more pain and fear. I would rather close my eyes even if they try to force me to open them. I will close them so hard and I will hold, you know that feeling when you know somebody's gonna punch you, you hold your stomach so strong, hold it so strong because when they're gonna shoot. I want things to happen very quickly with the minimum possible pain. And then they say load. You're just a few seconds away from dying, and then you just you're waiting for it to happen, and say aim, and they know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. This is not random. They give you time. At that time was finally, after years, I had such a beautiful moment, because there I was so close to the end, and then I had a chance to pressure myself to imagine something beautiful. My mom, my friends, the girl I love, my school, the classroom, just for seconds, I could imagine all of that. And as soon as the most beautiful picture comes in your mind, boom! In my ears for so long. And I die. For the first time in my life, I die. I never died before. None of my family members or friends who died came back and told me, hey, when you die, do the following, 1, 2, 3. Or when you die, that's what happens. No. It's the first time I'm dying. It's the first time I'm exploring. It's the first time I'm talking about death that way. So I die, and I wake up, and I stand. And I open my eyes. And in front of me, for the first time, after many years, many years, that felt decades and centuries of being under the ground in darkness, seeing nothing but blood, for the first time I stand with free hands, and in front of me, I see a tree. I always promise myself, if I ever see a tree again, I will hug the tree, I will kiss the tree. It will be the most beautiful thing I could ever imagine, be the most beautiful thing you could kiss. Nothing else could be better than a tree to kiss. And I saw color. Ugh, I missed color so bad. I missed blue, I missed yellow, I missed color so bad, And I'm seeing things moving. I can see a bird flying, I can see a flower, I can see grass. Grass, I'm starved. I could eat any form of a tree, any form of a grass. I go down to the ground to pick anything. You have no understanding of how starved I was. So I pick some grass, so I see my feet. And I had blood on my feet. I always believe there's no blood and pain in afterlife. In heaven, there shouldn't be any pain. So am I in hell? Am I alive, not dead, or am I in a nightmare and I will wake up and I'm still in prison? I don't know. There's nothing that can challenge any of these scenarios. I won't understand. And I can't see myself, but I see how beautiful it is. I'm in the middle of nowhere. This feels more like a dream. And then a car stops behind me. A man shouts, hey, come in, sit in the car. I come in and I sit in the car. In prison, you're not allowed to look the guard in the eye. You don't look. Your head is down all the time. I sit, the car drops me, a man picks me, a man drops me, and everything is happening so randomly. I don't know what's happening. And takes me. And then one of the men who were walking with me, there was for some reason no car. We were not allowed to use a car. He just walked with me. Then I fell on the ground. I can't. I was coughing blood. I was slowly dying. And when I fell on the ground, he comes down to me and he said, "You have to stand up. I am taking you to meet your mom." And in my heart, my mom was dead. So when he said that, I didn't know what to think. You always have a weird bond with your mom. You can always feel an emotional connection. You can always fight for it. Your dad, you can ignore super easily. Years in prison, didn't think about my dad. But my mom, as soon as I said, my mom was like, I get some more power and I stand and I walk more steps, maybe a few steps and she will show up, a few steps and she will show up. And then he takes me and I come inside an hotel room. And he opens the door and I know when the door is open, a woman gonna run towards me and she's gonna hug me and it's gonna feel so good. But yet, am I alive, dead, in a dream? What's happening? No clue. It doesn't matter. If I see my mom, I don't care. Whether it's death, heaven, life, I don't care. And I enter that room and nothing moves. And I look inside, nothing is moving, there's nothing there. So I wait in front of the bathroom door, expecting her to come out. But in prison, you don't see anything, so your listening is so heightened. This is a survival instinct. Your listening is so heightened so that I can't hear anything inside the bathroom. I know she's not inside, but I'm trying to find hope somewhere that I will see something I love. And then the man looks at me and say, "What are you waiting for?" And I felt fake. It felt like a lie. So I, of course, don't speak yet. Didn't say any single word because you're not allowed to speak. My brain is still in prison. I can't act like I'm not. And then I sit and I feel the disappointment. But when I sat on a bed. In prison, we had a small square like this, and you sit there. There's no space for you to sit. If you sit, the person in front of you is standing. 4 hours in, you have to shift. Suddenly, I'm sitting on an hotel bed, white, ironed, clean, and I see that. But then, as I move, I see something moving. And with the excitement of the love you have and how much you miss your beloved ones, I turn around and I see the most disgusting thing I could see at that time. A monster, bleeding, with no hair, no eyebrows, nothing. Just looking so bad, so dark, so ugly, and he just moves the same way I'm moving in reverse. It's like I put my hand and I was like, I want to erase that from the mirror, but you can't. It's like, as I forgot about the idea of mirror by then. I was so dead. I was so dead, and I was so shocked to see I can't be in heaven. For sure. With that, I can't be in heaven. You can't be so ugly in heaven. Come on. That ugly, you can't be. So I start to question if I am really alive or dead, start to hit myself, look at myself, touch myself. What's happening? I was so confused, so angry, confused at that moment. And then that man sends me to another man who picks me, who drops me, and then suddenly I'm in a crowd randomly. If you know what happened, I would know what happened. Everything is just happening randomly. And then suddenly I'm in the crowd with thousands of people in front of me. And then as they see I jump off the car, they just allow a woman to walk in the middle. And just a woman that I have a blurry sight after years of darkness, so I couldn't see very well, blurry. The closer she gets, the darker it gets under her eyes. And she comes closer and closer and closer, and she's so close to me. And when she's perfectly almost touching my body, she looks at me and she says, "Omar, قلب حياة ابنه." Omar, son, my heart, my life. And she hugs me so hard. And she's crying, and I'm coughing because I had tuberculosis and I'm dying. And she's hugging and she's crying, and everybody's running and hugging her and hugging, and everybody's touching. Just like the moment when I was taken to execution, everybody's trying to touch. Everybody was trying to touch me. If they can't touch me, they will touch my mom, you know? And it's like, and I don't know how real it is, how dream it is. I don't know nothing. But then when we sit in quietness, then somehow feels like there are beautiful things and ugly things and normal things and a table that's ugly, choice of table and all this stuff. I asked the question that was the most important question. What happened? You know, did I die? Are you guys dead? Because I know you died in a massacre. Are we now in heaven? What happened? You know? And everybody's looking at me like this, like, what's wrong with you? You know, in a polite way, they're looking at you. Are you serious in your questions? They're not understanding it. But for me, that, are you serious in your question, could be any. Right? And I just say, guys, it's like they took me into this. So my mom tells me, what happened is that we smuggled you. So I look back and said, what? None of everything I went through, there was any smuggling related activities, you know? I've seen a lot of Hollywood movies. None of the smugglings were related to, and no part of it. And she said, then I later understood that when they came into my room and they took someone before they took me to execution, that someone that they killed was supposed to be released. And I was supposed to be executed. They executed him and registered him dead with my name. And they took me out of prison with his name. And the execution was mock execution for the pleasure of the guards, for fun. For someone who doesn't know that, I died. So bad I died, with so much death I died. Suddenly I learned that one of the people that I knew, who was supposed to go back to his family, to his life, to his existence, you know, to have every beautiful feeling of meeting his family again, died, so I can live. And my mom fixed and bribed everything that happened all the time. From the top to the bottom, to the taxi driver, was bribed my mom. My mom for years, my mom survived the massacres where the rest of my family were killed. My father, my brothers were killed. My mom managed to find a way 3 years later to bribe the head of the prison, the soldiers, the guards, the execution guards, the taxi driver, the man who picked me from there, the man who smuggled me to another country, the whole way. Everything was bribed. Even the intelligence services on the checkpoint was bribed, so I passed. Because my mom is the most fabulous, the strongest, the most courageous person that would never give up. Knowing that there is one slightly thread of hope, she would never give up. You know? And I believed in hope so much, but my hope died so many times in prison that I believed there was no purpose of living, and I tried to die. But my mom never gave up. Even though they came to her and told her that I died in prison, they informed my mom that I died in prison. She believed in it a bit, but she had a slight thread of hope she worked on. I lost that hope. For me, everybody died. For my mom, didn't. That is the power of our mothers today. So if you, by any chance, have been disrespectful to your mom, you may have to reconsider a nice dinner invitation and tell her how much you appreciate her and how sorry you are for the way you behave. And you don't need to be the son. You could be the husband, and you would understand your wife will be a mother. You can also do that. The significance and the power of the mother is unbelievable. And then learning that my mom, despite the fact that she lost her husband and two of her sons in a massacre in front of her eyes, and yet keeps hope in her son who doesn't exist in the picture, doesn't know where he is, if he's alive or dead, and yet kept trying for years. This is uncanny. But I was so sick. I realized I was maybe alive, but I was so sick. I was 33 kilos, 20 years old. After years of where I was supposed to be in high school, I was in prison, and I had to go for medical treatment far away from my mom, who was at that time living in Turkey. I was sent to Sweden for medical treatment. On my way to Sweden, I stopped first in Germany to seek medical treatment. So I was taken to a refugee camp, and here's something you won't like. In the refugee camp, the first thing the guards said, you have to take off your clothes to see if you have anything, drugs, weapons, knives, or anything. I just came out from a place where you get naked like that, and they torture you. So I won't do it. Of course I won't take off my clothes. For what? I won't do it. The guard says, if you don't do it, you may have to stay outside until you want to do it. I won't do it. So I go to the street and sleep for 2 days on the street. Sleeping on the street sounds terrible, but for someone who's just been tortured for 3 years, sleeping on the street was like Sheraton, right? It was awesome because there's fresh air, doesn't smell blood. It wasn't a problem, even though it was the end of November. Cold, but it was fine. And then I decided to go further, and I ended up in Sweden. So the reason I didn't stay in Germany and I don't speak Dutch today is because of that guard and the first impression of Germany. So I ended up in Sweden, and here's a very beautiful story. And remember, I was in a dark place for a very long time, and I saw nothing beautiful, you know? Everything was ugly and dark, even though we tried to have good moments. So I'm sitting in the hospital in the waiting room, waiting for the nurse, the pretty nurse, to call on me. On the other side of the waiting room, there is a father, a mother, and their daughter sitting there. The daughter, stunning. It hurts to look at her, how beautiful she is. So beautiful. And I haven't seen something so beautiful in a very long time. That was the first time. And for the first time, I can look straight at something beautiful. Because before that, I couldn't look people in the eye. And now I look, and I see how beautiful she is. And I'm staring so bad. Then I look just a millimeter away, and her dad was staring back at me like this. And you get nervous, you hide behind your phone, your finger, anything you could hide behind. And then the nurse called on the mother, Francisca, and the mother leaves. And then I see the father moving. And I see the father with his daughter moving towards me. And they come and they sit next to me. And the father says something in Swedish. I didn't speak Swedish. So he transitioned, I think, to English, but I didn't speak English either. So he realized there's like no way to communicate, so he took Google Translate and tested multiple languages to get mine. And he got mine. He spoke. And remember, I was in prison. So this technology developed very much. The iPhone, the touch thing, that was when I was taken to prison, that's when people, this touch thing. On the phone touches, that was crazy innovation. You can touch your phone and it clicks, it does things. So the fact that the phone speaks with your own language was like a revolution for me at that time, because I was isolated from civilization. So he speaks to me through my own language. By speaking his own language, then the voice comes in my language, and he talks and he tells me, hey, how are you? I say, and I speak in my own language and translate to Swedish, and I hear how it sounds in Swedish, so weird. And he says some stuff, and then he asks me, where is your family? And to not make it so complicated, and tell him, a part is dead, a part is alive, and I'm not sure about what's happened, blah, 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 blah. I told him everybody died, just to make it short, because I didn't know Google wouldn't understand it. I was just trying to be nice and not make it too complicated for him. So he got shocked for a second, and then he said, do you want to hold my daughter? So he hands me his daughter, 2-month-old Sally. And there's nothing more humane and makes you feel like a human than holding a baby. Again, after being isolated from everything and seeing nothing but monsters and pain and blood. So I'm holding a baby for the first time, and I love children. I am from a big family, and I had 6 siblings younger than me. So I held so many in my life, but since they took me to under the ground, and years after I couldn't see that. Suddenly I'm holding a baby in my hand and I want to cry, but they are much faster in crying than you. So Sally, little Sally, started to cry, and before I do anything wrong, I hand her back to her father, and I'm shaking of excitement. Like, I hold the baby. Do you know what that means? That means I can be trusted again. That means like I'm a human. You know, I'm so much alive. It's so real. I'm holding a baby. And I'm not considered dangerous for the way I look because I was starved, because I was bleeding, and yet he hands me his daughter, and I felt so trusted. And I loved that feeling. And he said before he leaves, do you want to be my friend on Facebook? We didn't have Facebook in prison. So I didn't have Facebook, download Facebook, then I have him as my first friend, Jacob. Jacob goes and texts me at night on Messenger and say, hey, I told my mom about you, and my mom would like to meet you. And I said, sure. And his mom comes to meet me, and I meet his mom. It was around Christmas time, so they invited me to go for Christmas dinner. I go there. I didn't speak any language they could use, so everyone in the family, big family, had a different version of Google Translate to see which one works better, you know? And everybody, how many sisters and brothers do you have? You know? We are gonna make this food, do you wanna eat? And then they have to Google pictures. We're gonna eat deer. Deer, deer, you know, stuff, all these funny movements. And then they make it, and then, you know, you sit at that weird dinner table. You're not allowing anyone to have a conversation, technically. No Christmas conversation. Everything was about me, because they were so polite. They want you to understand everything they're saying. So they made the whole conversation about you, easiest to understand. And then, not long time after, I visited them multiple times. Then the mom sent me a message. The mother of Jacob said, hey, long message. However, the heart of the message was, we have an empty place in our heart and an empty place in our home, and we would like you to move and live with us. So I did, not realizing what that sentence in particular meant. We have an empty place in our heart. Her son, my age, died in a car accident when they met me. So the place in their home is available too. So they invited me, and I lived there, not to replace, but to, you got it. I can't explain it to you. And I moved there, and I lived there, and then I got my first job. I sold ice cream at Ben & Jerry's. And when you do it for the first time, you think it's the best job. You would never seek another job. It's fantastic, it's marvelous, exceptional. But the names of the ice cream was hell. Cherry Garcia, peanut butter cup. It took like a week to memorize these words if you don't speak that language, right? And chunky monkey, you know. So I had to take pictures of every ice cream and go home and memorize to come back to be able to sell. And then you know how you call it cone? Some people call it something else. And then if you don't call it cone, I don't understand. You have to call it what I know it. So people would come, and every person would come with a new word for it, and I got messy. And the banana. You can't call it banana ice cream. For me, it's chunky monkey. You have to say chunky. You can't say cherry. It is Cherry Garcia. I don't understand what cherry is. So it was tough, but I overcame it. Then 2 months later, I realized I can do even better. So I started to do translation, like Swedish to Arabic. My Swedish get better, so I started translation. Then I was asked to teach. So I started to teach Swedish kids math and so on, very basic. And then I started to do public speaking. The mother of Jacob was surprisingly the head of the Swedish national TV. So she asked me, do you want to tell your story to Sweden? I said, sure. So I was on TV a few months after I arrived. I shared my story with the few words I could in Swedish, but it reached. Then the Norwegian TV reached out. Okay, now it's the final story I'm telling you, the story of love, again. So the Norwegian TV takes that interview, stream it, because they have a partnership. So I receive a message on Instagram from a girl who says, I saw your interview, and I also heard that you love mountains and birds. I come from Bergen. Terrible accent they have there. It sounds like German, you know. And they come, and she said, I'm from Bergen on the west coast of Norway. A lot of mountains, and we have a lot of birds. If you ever would like to come there, you're welcome to stay at our home. 2 days later, I was there. Very open-minded, very extroverted, open-minded. 2 days later, I was there. And there was no profile picture, no pictures there. That girl was stunning. And my heart was fresh after prison, ready. So I did fall in love. And that was the first time after years of torture, I fell in love. I was doubting myself whether I can be in love or not. Because when I loved the first one, I thought I could never fall in love again. She's the only thing I would ever have. If she dies, if I die, if the love stops, there's no more love after that, right? So when I meet the other one and with all the baggage I have, imagine telling a girl that you just met, hey, I was tortured for 3 years, gonna go on a date. The likelihood of her being Norwegian or being Swedish, who've been super privileged for all of their life, 200 years ago, being privileged until today, they afraid of that. It's like scary. With you, it's like so much, you can't handle it, So I was doubting the ability of me being able to fall in love and having someone to fall in love with someone with so much background, But I fell in love, and then we fell in love. And that was so real. And I realized, the first love I had was not even significant. And when I had that feeling, I was like, man, I felt guilty about it for some day, but then I was in real love. Because when you love when you're younger, it's different when you're older. It's always memorable to fall in love first time, but it's more significant when you're more adult, when you understand what it is, what it's about in general. And then 2 years later, you break up, you're not in love anymore, then you fall in love again, and you realize your heart is so resilient. Not just your body, the body that can get used to the pain, physical pain, not just your brain that can adjust to any trauma, but also your heart. Your heart can be broken in many ways, but it's so powerful it can heal back. It does not heal back on its own, it heals back with people, with connection, with relations, with people you trust and you love. I didn't survive prison because I was strong. Zero muscles. Minus 0 muscles. Wasn't strong physically. Mentally, I wasn't strong. What was strong was the community of people around me that trusted each other and loved each other. So in prison, I could survive because of these people. And when I was welcomed in the hospital to hold the most pure thing, that baby, was trusted by Jacob, by his family, I felt so alive. I felt so strong. I could heal. And then when I was loved, romantic love, I felt I am so complete. And the life I have today is life that I wouldn't give up for anything. And everything I went through, even though it was so harsh, it lets me to where I am today. And I love where I am today. I don't have any regret for anything I went through because it made me who I am today. And I'm very satisfied with it. If I wasn't in prison, I would have been dead with my father and brothers. If I wasn't in prison, I would have never met these fantastic people that shaped me. I grew up in prison. The most significant years of my life were in prison. Oh, even though innocent, I had the chance to learn so much, but also to have function in prison. It was painful for many hours, but also I could do small things that I learned from the doctor to save the life of someone who was injured. And trauma. I was there for every single day being tortured on a daily basis, but for 3 years, the time was so long, so everything I was going through, I was processing day after day. Thanks to the psychologists who were prisoners teaching me how to cope with your trauma, how to get used to it, how to process everything. So when I was out, I was healed. So if you can heal from torture, from pain, from suffering, from the death of everything and everyone you love, you will heal from whatever depression you could be facing, from any challenge you have in your life. Thank you. That being said, let's have some questions. Go ahead.